Welcome back to Gore Stories. Tonight, we're delving into a chilling realm where the true horror isn't found in the shadows, but in the darkest recesses of the human mind. Imagine a terror so profound that it doesn't come from the monsters lurking in the dark, but from the monsters within ourselves. The mind is the deadliest weapon, and its capacity for horror can far exceed anything we might encounter in the physical world. Psychological terror taps into our deepest fears, our most hidden anxieties, and brings them to the surface in a way that can be more terrifying than any creature or specter. In this episode, we will explore the haunting truth that the most horrifying monsters are those that reside in our minds, unseen, intangible, yet profoundly affecting. So, brace yourself as we journey into the realm where fear is not just a sensation but an unrelenting force that can unravel the very fabric of our sanity. Prepared, confront the darkest corners of psychological terror, where the line between reality and nightmare blurs, and where the true horror is the haunting of the mind itself. But let me introduce you to a name whispered with dread in the darkest corners of the net: the architect of fear. Unlike any conventional killer, the architect is not known for blood or violence, but for a different kind of terror, one that exists purely in the mind. Imagine a man who doesn't need physical weapons to wreak havoc. His tools are far more insidious, using advanced neural technology. The architect of fear infiltrates the very thoughts and dreams of his victims. This technology is so sophisticated that it allows him to bypass the usual defenses of the human psyche, directly accessing and manipulating the core of his victim's consciousness. His method of killing is as chilling as it is unique. The architect's victims don't fall to conventional means of violence. Instead, they are driven to the brink of madness by their own minds. He orchestrates elaborate psychological tortures, meticulously designed to exploit their deepest fears and insecurities. Each carefully constructed scenario twists and warps reality, creating a labyrinth of nightmares that ultimately leads them to a tragic end, one they bring upon themselves. The experience begins subtly, with small anomalies, strange sounds, fleeting shadows, or disjointed thoughts. But these are only the beginning. As the architect's influence grows, so does the intensity of the psychological torment. The victims are led through a series of increasingly disturbing hallucinations and delusions, meticulously crafted to destabilize their grip on reality. They encounter phantoms from their past, distorted versions of people they once knew, and visions of their most horrific fears brought to life. And just when they believe they're free from this relentless torment, the final twist awaits. The architect is never truly absent. He has already invaded their minds, listening to their cries of terror, waiting to strike with ever-increasing precision. His presence is a constant, invisible threat, lurking in the dark corners of their thoughts, pushing them towards their ultimate demise. What makes the architect of fear truly terrifying is the unsettling realization that he could be anywhere. He could be within the recesses of your own mind, quietly observing, waiting for the right moment to unleash his psychological horrors. The real horror is not just the suffering he inflicts, but the haunting possibility that he is already closer than you could ever imagine. As we delve deeper into the realm of psychological terror, remember this chilling thought: the architect of fear might just be closer to you than you think, lurking in the darkest recesses of your own mind. In the world of true crime, there are those whose methods transcend physical violence, using psychological manipulation as their primary weapon. These real-life horrors are not just tales of gore, but chilling accounts of how fear and control can be wielded to devastating effect. Today, we explore the dark realms of psychological killers who, like the architect of fear, inflict their terrors not with brute force but with insidious mental torment. One of the most notorious examples is Charles Manson, a man whose influence extended far beyond the confines of his own actions. Manson never personally committed the murders that became infamous, but his ability to manipulate and control his followers led to some of the most horrific crimes in modern history. Manson's method was psychological warfare. He preyed on vulnerable individuals, exploiting their fears and insecurities, weaving a web of charismatic persuasion that enveloped them. Manson's family was drawn into a spiral of violence, driven by his apocalyptic vision and his ability to instill a deep-seated sense of paranoia and mistrust. His control was so absolute that his followers were willing to commit unspeakable acts, believing that they were carrying out his divine will. The psychological manipulation was profound. Manson used isolation, drugs, and intense indoctrination to erode their sense of self and reshape their reality. His victims were not just murdered. They were systematically dehumanized and broken down mentally before they met their horrific end. Another harrowing example is Jim Jones, the leader of the People's Temple, who orchestrated the tragic Jonestown massacre. Like Manson, Jones employed psychological manipulation to exert control over his followers. His methods included fostering a cult of personality, manipulating religious and political ideologies, and creating a climate of fear and dependency. Jones's followers were led to a tragic end under the guise of a revolutionary act, but the true horror lay in the psychological conditioning that made such an end seem acceptable or even desirable to them. Then there's the case of Elizabeth Bathory, often referred to as the Blood Countess. While her methods involved physical violence, her true terror came from her psychological manipulation and the fear she instilled in those around her. Bathory's control over her servants and the extreme fear she generated among her victims played a crucial role in the perpetuation of her crimes. These cases highlight how psychological manipulation can be as deadly as any physical weapon. The power to control, to instill fear, and to break down an individual's mental defenses can lead to catastrophic results. The real horror of these psychological killers is not just the violence they inflict, but the profound mental and emotional impact they have on their victims. As we reflect on these real-world horrors, it becomes clear that the mind can be a battleground more terrifying than any physical confrontation. The ability to exploit vulnerabilities and manipulate perceptions from within is a chilling reminder of how powerful and destructive the human psyche can be. Welcome back to Cyber Gore Stories. In this segment, we delve into the deeply personal and harrowing experience of someone who has survived the chilling reality of psychological abuse. While we've explored fictional and historical examples of psychological terror, today we hear from a survivor whose story brings the abstract horrors of the mind into stark, real-world context. We have with us Sarah, who has bravely agreed to share their experience of enduring psychological abuse. Their story is a profound testament to how the mind can be tormented and manipulated in ways that leave scars deeper than physical violence. Sarah, thank you for joining us and sharing your story. To start, can you describe the nature of the psychological abuse you endured? What was the situation, and how did it begin?
It started slowly. I was involved with someone who seemed charming and attentive at first. But as time went on, the manipulation began. It was subtle at first, gaslighting, making me question my reality, and isolating me from friends and family. I began to doubt my own sanity. The emotional manipulation was relentless, creating a cycle where I was constantly seeking their approval while feeling increasingly trapped.
That sounds incredibly difficult. Can you talk about the psychological tactics used against you? How did they affect your mental state?
One of the most damaging tactics was gaslighting. They would twist my words and actions to make me believe I was at fault for everything. This constant undermining made me question my perceptions and memories. It was like living in a constant state of confusion and self-doubt. There were also threats and intimidation, though they were always veiled in a way that made them seem like misunderstandings rather than outright threats.
How did this experience affect your sense of self and your overall mental health?
It had a profound impact on my mental health. I experienced severe anxiety, depression, and a pervasive sense of fear. I felt like I was living in a nightmare that I couldn't escape. My self-esteem was shattered, and I became incredibly withdrawn. The psychological abuse left me feeling powerless and constantly on edge, always waiting for the next manipulation or emotional attack.
In terms of recovery, what steps have you taken to heal from this experience?
Recovery has been a long and challenging process. Therapy has been crucial in helping me rebuild my sense of self and work through the trauma. It's taken a lot of time and support from friends and family to regain my confidence and sense of normalcy. Learning to trust myself again and recognize healthy boundaries has been a significant part of my healing journey.
Finally, What advice would you give to someone who might be experiencing similar psychological abuse?
My advice would be to seek help and support as soon as you can. Don't hesitate to reach out to a mental health professional or trusted individuals who can provide guidance and support. It's important to recognize the signs of manipulation and understand that you deserve to be treated with respect and care. Healing is possible, but it requires acknowledging the abuse and taking proactive steps towards recovery.
Thank you, Sarah, for sharing your story with us. Your bravery in speaking out about such a personal and painful experience shines a light on the deep psychological wounds inflicted by abuse. It's a stark reminder that the scars left by psychological torment can be as profound and lasting as those from physical violence. As we wrap up this episode, we hope Sarah's story has provided insight into the harsh realities of psychological abuse and the importance of addressing these hidden wounds. Join us next time as we continue to explore the darkest corners of the human psyche and the real-life horror. Thank you for joining us on this chilling journey into the depths of psychological horror. We've explored the intricate and terrifying ways the mind can be manipulated and tormented, shedding light on the unseen scars that linger long after the abuse has ended. But hold on to your seats, because next week, we're diving headfirst into the extreme. We'll venture into the realms of serial killers whose methods are so gruesome and torture so grotesque that it will push the boundaries of your darkest fears. Prepare for stories of brutality and gore that will leave you questioning the limits of human cruelty. Are you ready to confront the raw, unfiltered horror that exists at the edge of human experience? Tune in for our next episode, where we unravel the grisly tales of pain and suffering that will make your skin crawl and your heart race. Until then, stay curious, stay cautious, and remember, sometimes the scariest monsters are the ones lurking in the darkest corners of the human psyche. Don't forget to subscribe, share your own chilling experiences with us, and be part of the Gore Stories community. We'll see you in the next episode.